No more excuses. I grabbed one of the speedlights that Godox sent me for review, a small softbox, and reached out to someone that truly fits my vision. It was time to make the environmental portraits that this project deserves. Let's break down this photoshoot and how I finally removed my biggest editing bottleneck by adding AI to my workflow. I've been buried in flash reviews. Godox sent something, Newer sent something, and suddenly all I'm doing is testing gear instead of working on the project that gave a new life to this channel, photographing people who work with objects from another time. I'd had Nelson's number in my phones for months, but work got crazy and I kept postponing it. Then, on my last day in town, it hit me. This was my only shot, so I finally sent the message. A few hours later, I was standing in a small shop in Nairobi, photographing Nelson, surrounded by vintage hi-fi gear and old records. I love it when a plan comes together. This time I wanted it to fit my new project. Nelson runs a small shop where he sells vintage hi-fi gear and old records in Nairobi. People like him are exactly what I'm looking for. In Brussels, I photographed Marcel, who repairs old electronics, and Ludo, who fixes pinball machines. It's the same world. People who give a second life to things everyone else leaves behind. My name is Jose Alcoy and I share tips and reviews on off-camera flash photography. You can grab my one light setup guide for dramatic portraits. The link is in the description. Nelson has been running this shop as a side hustle for many years. He does it purely out of passion, importing gear from the UK and helping people find the equipment and records they've been searching for. He's been building a TikTok account with clips from the shop and the things he discovers. Now, about the gear. I've been experimenting with a lighter setup. My Sony A7C II, a small Godox B480, and a 65cm softbox. I also brought a light stand, but honestly it's almost useless in tight spaces. What I really need for shoots like this is an extra pair of hands. Luckily, my girlfriend's brother John offered to help out. I took a few test shots of him that actually turned out pretty good. Now for the shoot. This happens to me a lot. When I'm working in dark environments, my eyes adapt, so the image on the screen or the viewfinder looks fine. But then I open the files on my computer and they look too dark. Here I had to lift the exposure by about one stop. It's fine, being slightly under it's always safer. Modern cameras can handle underexposure easily, but there's no coming back from blown highlights. The second blunder I fixed in post was the white balance. I do have gels for my speedlights, but I didn't bring them on this trip. The shop had pretty harsh lighting, so I asked Nelson to kill the main ceiling light and leave one of the side fluorescent tubes on. That gave the scene a green cast. It could work for a vintage vibe, but that wasn't the look I wanted. For this project I prefer realistic colors. I was shooting on the Sony 35mm G Master, and it really felt like the sweet spot for the space. I asked Nelson to leave the door open so we could see the back shop in the background, and to lean on the furniture to get that sense of connection with the space he created. In this photoshoot I experimented with foreground elements to add depth to the frame. The main character is tack sharp at a wide open aperture of 1.4, and the background falls out of focus depending on the distance. Stopping down to 2.8 would have worked better for the scene, but I did not want to push the camera past the second native ISO of my Sony A7C II, which is 400. I didn't carry a tripod, so 180 is the lowest speed I dare to try. I really enjoyed editing these pictures on my new OLED monitor. The deep blacks and vibrant colors make a big difference. If you want to know more, check out the video that pops up here. But what has made a huge difference is simplifying my workflow. This is some of my best work I took 5 years ago. Back then I used Photoshop for blemishes, hair, dodge and burn, etc. I'm very proud of what I achieved with my limited editing skills, but it took me several hours per picture, so it was not sustainable. I'm always excited to shoot with my strobes, but then I drag my feet for months when it's time to edit. I used to dread the long, painful retouching sessions. I tested Evoto a few months ago and I was not convinced. As much as I hate paying Adobe a subscription, I was not ready to leave behind my cumbersome Wacom and Photoshop edits, but I've seen other creators raving about Evoto 6, so I gave it another shot. And honestly, it feels like the way forward. You can get natural edits in just minutes. It feels like proper retouching, not a clumsy job. I don't know yet if it can fully replace tools like Capture One, Lightroom or Photoshop, but the price feels fair when you think about how many hours it can save you. Of course, the challenge is finding the balance between cleaning up small imperfections and staying true to the documentary side of my work. And with women, beauty is always part of the equation. My approach is simple. Acne is temporary, so I'm comfortable removing most of it. I also cleaned up a few body blemishes and softened the lips. Reducing face shine is something I used to paint in manually in Photoshop. Now it's literally one slider. I'm loving this tool. Skin retouching is purely aesthetic, but I've decided it has a place in my photography. For facial skin, I added a touch of dodge and burn, a bit of sculpt, and light smoothing. Now, for the final touch, I'm trying to dial in my own distinctive look. I brought back a bit of blue in the shadows and warm yellow in the mid-tones and highlights, a similar direction I used back in the day. It's very subtle, but it gives the image a mood I like. I also added a bit of soft grain to give the image a more organic feel. I'm really excited about how this project is coming together. Subscribe and watch this video next if you're curious about my return to photography and how a tiny softbox can give you a strong environmental portrait.